Good morning, my beautiful ladies, and welcome to an episode of Lingerie and Lattes. I'm Olivia Dramaga, and I founded Vulcanability as a way for women to have a monogamous guide into creating flourishing, wonderful relationships to their partners and with themselves. So I spoke last week regarding different rituals women can do in order to drop into their feminine, which is simple daily experiences that you might already be doing, and simply a reframe of the mind can help you really invoke that feminine essence you would want to experience in your life, which is a vessel of receptivity, a flow with life, and all of this sort of surrender talk that we keep seeing around feminine energy, but it's simply difficult to tap into if we've never really done the work beforehand. So for today, I wanted to actually segue into the ability for women to nurture themselves and to give back to their own vessels, to their own cups, because a lot of what we do is usually a bit of people pleasing. If you've been in that sort of position in life, then maybe you've been also giving away a no. And instead of saying and honoring your own boundary, just allowing another person's requirements or desires to kind of take over your own. And we notice this a lot in our day-to-day lives. I also recently published a article regarding equality and how sometimes it's a good reframe that we can take upon what it means for women and men to be equal. So I would highly suggest looking into my blog on my Vulcanability website, because when we think of equality, a lot of the times women suggest that being equal to men is really where equality lies or feminism lies. And I want to argue that it's not necessarily true. We don't necessarily desire for women to be treated like men. We don't really want the same achievements that men want, and allowing us to be empowered in a feminine sense is going to look a little differently than a masculine person empowered in their divine masculine. So if you do want to check that out, I would highly suggest, because at the end of the article, I do go into some methods for you to tap into the feminine and to create a more equal world. And that's really around the basis of around our own energy and how we can take accountability when we are thinking about how we are hygienically approaching our energy field. If we are not doing the right things in order to protect our space or to protect our auras, then we allow the walls of ourselves to be a little bit more permeable. And then we might allow other people's negativity to affect us, or any other aspect of another person to kind of flow more easily into ourselves, and maybe knock us off our stance, our solid, grounded, stable self. So with today's subject, I would like to propose how women can sometimes put themselves more in the forefront of taking care of themselves, and just do a little bit more each day for their own psyche and for their own healing. So when I suggest that the spiritual world is something we really want to take care of and be a little bit more aware of, I go into this in a little bit more depth, that women are the spiritual leaders of the world. We tend to be the ones to break through traumas. And usually, if we have a male partner, as all of my work surrounds, then we are usually the person to lead that kind of transformation in our lives. Men are a lot more about the outward world, and they're about the now, whereas women are the visionaries. We tend to go more into a dream state, a dreamland. And the cycle, which I also briefly spoke about last week in the previous video, the cycle allows us to drop into that space of the womb, and it allows us to drop into the space of the underworld, where we are able to kind of go through everything that's in our subconscious, and it lets us clear out a lot of the gunk that sits there. So whether that's previous belief systems that don't serve you anymore, generational traumas, things that maybe our ancestors have been kind of stringing along through the generations, we are typically the ones that will go and excavate and basically handle these areas of the world. And when we desire for women and men to be equal, meaning that women should be in the same positions as men or strive for the same things, we really overlook a big area of the world that needs our attention. And that's where women thrive. So we are really the people who are meant to show how to have how to have holistic relationships and how to be the ones that are empathetic, and change kind of the dialect amongst people, because we are the nurturers. We usually are the ones who are able to see subtleties of life. We tend to need more rest than men. And again, when we want to compare ourselves to what it means to be equal to a man, we lose those special qualities that a woman brings into the world. So a lot of the times, we want to measure up our progress towards what a man is able to create in the society, where I suggest that we promote our own qualities and our own paths for us to forge down, because when we are able to do that, we're able to progress the world a lot more, because then people actually understand the value that women bring into society. So just as it is more natural for a woman to be in a cyclical nature every single month because of their hormones and because of their periods, it's much easier for us to, let's say, decorate a space versus a man to sit down and work on a spreadsheet. Sometimes we just have similar tendencies, um, that are stronger for one person over another. And of course, this isn't to say that every single woman would be good at decorating and every single man would be good at a Excel spreadsheet. The point, though, is that men do tend to have stronger abilities in certain areas, and women tend to have stronger abilities in other pursuits. And when we don't qualify those pursuits as being important in the world, we want to shun them. And we kind of seen that in the education system. Pretty much all creative arts and education of the creative mind is deemed to be less important than more practical STEM skills, because that is really the moneymaker, which is how they are able to create factory workers, or so to speak, factory, because now everything's remote or they have an office. But the idea is to work under somebody. So we create a whole school education system that tells others that the creative pursuits are less valuable, and therefore we need to switch them out, spend less funding on art, spend less funding on musical instruments, and instead put in subjects that are of value in the world and are able to bring people out of poverty, so to speak. And I use air quotes when I'm saying this, because all it is really setting people up, setting kids up to be workers in certain environments that are thriving among you following the rules, coming in at a certain amount of time, never taking a break, et cetera, et cetera. So if we want to be in our feminine, and if we want to claim we want a more equal world and actually take steps in order to improve that, I do promote that women are meant to be who they are. So figure out what is your area of expertise, and don't allow it to be something that maybe you've been told you're very good at, or other people suggest that you should pursue this. Allow yourself to go deep inside yourself and really question, what ignites my passion? And this could have absolutely nothing to do with a skill set that is supposed to make you money. But allowing yourself to really dive into these questions breaks away from the patriarchal view of the world of how can I succeed or become ambitious in order to achieve something. And it brings us back to our roots as women. So women are really more about the internal world, as I've mentioned. They're more about the spiritual self. They go into the subconscious. They're a lot more in tune with the energetics parts of life. And if we think about the process of a woman maturing and coming into motherhood, she is the one who essentially brings the baby from the spiritual world into the physical. So we have this innate ability to create from non-physical matter to physical matter. And when we don't capitalize upon that because we claim that STEM or something much more practical is of more value than these other esoteric subjects, such as pursuing different mystical arts like astrology or crystals or tea readings or palm readings, or pretty much anything in the Akashic records, any sort of exploration of the non-physical world tends to be seen as less relevant. And we are really shifting away from that in this world. However, I'm noticing a really big area in the spiritual world that is not going deep enough. It's going into a little bit more of a false light sense, where everything has to be always good and nice and beautiful. And if there's any sort of shadow work involved or addressing parts of yourself that are unwanted or rejected, it's not necessarily good. And I still see this sense of lack of reverence around the demons that exist in us, or like the devil card itself in the tarot is really seen as this negative presence, but all it really is where you're limiting yourself in your own world. So noticing how you sometimes come into certain patterns of behavior that limit you from achieving your next step or achieving your next goal, that's all the devil's work, essentially. That's all you as a human keeping yourself away from the spiritual world and of spiritual pursuits and keeping you here locked into this realm. So that could be pursuit of lust. There's a lot of people who justify their lack of relationship or lack of pursuit of a long-term relationship or valuable relationships because they say they don't have the time for it, or they just need their needs met, or et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of the younger generation now actually lacks any sort of a romantic ability to relate to another person because it's become such a business. It's become such an industry of swiping, of putting out your resume as well. Here I go. I even called it a resume, but it's supposed to be a dating profile. Everything related to the subject is so much of this masculine driven energy behind it that it lacks the flow and the space that it needs in order to be created. So the younger generation is falling more into situationships, hookup culture, a lot more fleeting relationships, claiming that it's woman empowerment, when in reality, we can't circumvent the physical attraction and the physical attraction that then leads to emotional connection for women. Because when we engage in intimacy, we release certain hormones that are meant to be bonding and are meant to create a more stable connection with a man. Now, men have the opposite. They tend to create a relationship or create some sort of emotional connection with women outside of physical intimacy. And that's just the way that they work. So, in order for us to really come together and be an equal world, we have to recognize what it means for a woman to succeed and what it means for a man to succeed, and honor that those are different things and that we have different areas of expertise that are desiring attention from both. So the men can handle the ambitious world, they can handle the money aspect, they can handle the success that comes with being who they are in a terms of going out and getting things. Women, on the other hand, really have to go inside of their psyche, inside of their healing, inside of their realm, and clean up their gardens, because a lot of the times we come in there and we claim to be spiritual, but we still live life the way that we've always lived life, or with a lot of negativity, or with a lot of sense of fear or anxiety around certain subjects. To bring to light, where are you in the spectrum? Where's your relationship to the feminine? What do you think is important for us to create an equal world between men and women? And how can we maybe shift that conversation to being one where we honor women as who they are versus who we want them to become? So right now, I'll just state it again. A lot of the world right now for women, especially during feminism, is to be more equal and more like a man, essentially. We have to have a job, stable job, lift up the economy, create perhaps a family, even though now that's pretty much looked down upon. If you do want to start a family, it's looked down upon to be a homemaker. It's looked down upon for women to be who they are in their little domains. And we expect that the equality means voting rights, equal pay, equal positions in their careers. And all of these things are required in the world, absolutely, but they should not be the end goal for women. They shouldn't really be the standard how we relate to equality, because again, all that does is eliminate the feminine and keep pushing the masculine agenda of being in a more career driven, which benefits the government, creates a lot more money, reduces the population, and so forth. So if we just want to focus on how to become more in tune with ourselves, with our intuition, and with nature in general, that's when we have to get into the spiritual realm, because otherwise we are not able to move forward in progression if we don't recognize what the energies behind us and in front of us and around us and everywhere are at play. If we don't tap into the energies that are creating our life and creating the path you're leading on, you're not really going to work with what's available to you. So honestly, take just a few moments in the day to recognize what you think it's supposed to be in a world where men and women are equal, and start to question whether that's really equality or whether that's still one-sided and just shoving women into what they're supposed to be. And start to ask yourself, what would life look like if women were equal to men? What if we actually responded to women's cycles as the way that we live life and as a way for women to deal with their health? What would it mean for women to take and slow down their lives around 2 weeks at a time? And if we think about the previous cultures, when women used to really be the drivers of villages, taking care of their homes, of their communities, a lot of times women would bond together and start doing things in a group fashion. So if we think about, how am I supposed to be the financial bearer of the home? How am I supposed to cook for the family? How am I supposed to clean for the family, etc.? If you think about the old times, there used to be a community you were able to tap into. So women would get together, create food for the whole 4 or 5 families that they'd be working with. And this is, not commenting on the rich families and the wealthy families who had certain servants do this for them nonstop. This is related to the common people. And we would group together, do that in a circular fashion. Then together we would look over the kids, and then together we would clean the houses, or let's say person A in group would start doing the household chores, and the rest of the girls would start prepping for the food that has to be made. And there would always be the sense of sisterhood and a sense of help that would be available to you nonstop. Nowadays, we've isolated ourselves, we've isolated moms, and we expect them to do pretty much everything and more. So when we start to question what it means to be a feminist, what it means to be equal in the world, and what it means to really be in their feminine power, we can start to shift the dialogue a lot more. And women and men can start to have better relationships because we're honoring what both sides need versus just honoring what man needs and forcing women to be in alignment with that. On that note, I have pulled out a card from the Rise of Sophia deck, and the one that came out is actually Serenity. You are being rewarded for the steps you've taken to become one with your light body meaning the energetic realm, and as a result, your thoughts are more serene and clear. Your behaviors are in alignment with your soul's path, and Serenity is now a vehicle, allowing you to see into the future. Accept this vision as a gateway into the heavenly portals where your psychic wisdom is the path to serenity. If we take a moment to let that settle in, if we consider what most of us are looking for, it's a more peaceful life. It's inner peace, and it's this thing that we think is unattainable in this world. However, what this card is suggesting is if we do take care of the aura, if we do take care of the energetic field that we live on, we're able to bring more serenity or calmness into the mind. And through that calmness, you're able to see what you really want to create in the world, which is your path forward. And through that clarity, you can take the right action in order to bring that about. And we have to be open in this process because a lot of times where you think you're headed can shift. And that ends up being really terrifying sometimes because then you're again in the unknown abyss, which you will find yourself in many times if you're taking the path of the mystic, because life's mysteries are always the driving forces of change and of circumstances that you could never foresee. So as we go through this process, really referring to you and your spiritual body as the ultimate pursuit in your life, keeping it clean, keeping yourself connected to your light body, to connected to your divine, that's where we start the change in the world. And that's where we create equality because women are then again tapped into their feminine and tapped into their power. Thank you so much, my gorgeous woman. You have an amazing week, and we will speak next Sunday.